appraisal, assessment, CMA, and the Zestimate. That's what we're going to talk about today and clear some things up so that you're prepared for battle with the housing market in Virginia Beach and the surrounding areas. The problem to be solved if you're a buyer is finding a home you like in a market with almost no inventory and then making an offer that a seller will choose when he has 10 other offers spread out over his dining room table. Gone are the days of initial offers and negotiating back and forth. If you want to buy a house, you must come to terms with the fact that you are now competing with other buyers to craft the offer that the seller is most likely to pick. Price is obviously one of the most important considerations. So is the closing date, or rent back, and the home inspection, and the type of loan, and the appraisal guarantee, which I cover in great detail in another video linked in the description below. First, you must know the market value, and that can be a moving target. If a house is priced too high, it won't get any offers, even in today's highly competitive market. On the flip side, it's possible that a house could be priced too low, in which case a savvy buyer could put together a winning offer using knowledge of the market that others might not have. So having a firm grasp of a home's market value is the first step in beating out competing buyers. To do that, we have to dig down into the concepts of the appraisal, the assessment, the Zestimate, and the CMA. First, the assessment. Real estate assessment is a valuation of your property for taxation purposes. It's done by the government, in our case, the local Virginia Beach government. The tax rate is 99 cents on $100, which is pretty close to 1%. So if you have a $100,000 house, your yearly taxes will be about $1,000. $1 million house, about $10,000. A $500,000 house? You get the picture. The city has a team of appraisers who determine the value of every house every year for tax purposes. It's important to note that they don't visit every house, and they don't know that your house is better or worse than your neighbor's. They just know the size and location and broad brush values determined by recent sales. Chances are your assessment is simply a number spit out by an algorithm, the same algorithm that spits out your neighbor's assessment. So don't confuse your assessment with an appraisal, even though the city appraisers are working on your assessment. Think of the assessment as a heartless algorithm used to squeeze tax money from you, or as a way to pay your fair share to keep our city vibrant and beautiful. I prefer thinking about it the vibrant and beautiful way because I'm a true believer in Virginia Beach. But never, and I mean never, use the city assessment during real-time, boots on the ground, we're buying a house today discussion of market value. You'll be tempted because it's a published number and gives you something to grab onto in the face of uncertainty. It might be right, just like a broken clock is right twice a day, but it could be, and it often is, off by 20% or more, in either direction. And don't ever say city appraisal. It's not an appraisal. So what is an appraisal? In residential real estate, an appraisal is a 30-page document showing the data used to determine an opinion of value by a licensed appraiser. Opinion of value. We'll get more to that in a minute. In Virginia, a licensed appraiser must go through a litany of training. This includes 2,000 hours of working as a trainee. That's full-time, 40 hours a week for a year, along with 30 semester hours and another 150 hours of coursework. It's not something that just anyone can do. And almost every appraiser I meet is competent, intelligent, and capable. Appraisals are most commonly used by the mortgage lenders for new purchases and refinances. There are tons of rules and regulations that guide how these appraisals are performed, but in a nutshell, the appraisal is a third-party opinion of value to make sure that the contract purchase price is in line with actual market value. That keeps the bank from lending someone $1 million for a $500,000 house, and in turn, it's a safety backstop to keep the buyer from unwittingly paying $1 million for a $500,000 house. To come up with his opinion of value, an appraiser will use comparable sales, which are actual home sales from the last 6 months, similar in size, condition, and location. A good example of an easy appraisal is one in which there are 6 homes that have sold in a newer development, where all the homes are exactly the same. If all 6 sold for a $500,000, it will be everyone's opinion that the subject property is worth $500,000. Most of the time, it's more difficult than that, especially in Virginia Beach, where most of the high-value neighborhoods near the water are completely built out and older. In some neighborhoods, you'll have a 4,000 square foot house next to a 2,000 square foot house. One might be completely remodeled and one might be 50 years old with original carpet. This is where the opinion of value comes into play. A new kitchen can cost $15,000 or $150,000. A remodel can be done in stages as a do-it-yourself project or $1 million professional masterpiece. The appraiser gets to decide what it's worth, and every appraiser will do it a little bit differently. That little bit can add up. Sometimes there's so much wiggle room that 2 different appraisers could be $50,000, $100,000 apart. Most of the time, the appraisals come back with a value that is logical and reasonable. But sometimes you get a new appraiser who's not familiar with the area and he's having a bad day, and you get an opinion of value that's out to lunch. While an appraiser produces an appraisal, a realtor will generally give you a comparable market analysis, or CMA. A CMA takes a more common sense approach and can be done by virtually anyone with access to recent sales. You take a look at the recently sold properties in a neighborhood and come up with a range where you think the home might sell. My personal technique is to send a list of 5 to 10 homes to my client and have them determine where the subject property falls in comparison. You can dive into the pictures to see the condition. You can check out the satellite view and street view in Google Maps, come up with your own opinion of value. I do the same, compare notes, and a range falls into place. It might be your first time doing something like this, but I've done it 1,000 times. Put the two of us together and we'll get a pretty accurate opinion. It's usually in line with the appraisal. That leaves us with the Zestimate, which is a word made up by Zillow. It's Zillow's estimate of the market value of a home. By Zillow's own admission, in Virginia, the Zestimate is wrong 50% of the time by over 5%, and it's wrong 30% of the time by over 10%. For $1 million house, that's plus or minus $100,000. That number tightens up with homes that are listed for sale because it appears that it's heavily weighted to the list price. In our areas, realtors generally try to list close to market value, so Zillow is taking that information and calling it their own. Here's an example. The Zestimate history on this home shows that the home is worth about $500,000 until it's listed for $600,000, and then the Zestimate pops up to $600,000. You don't need a PhD in economics to see that's malarkey. The Zestimate almost certainly pulls data from the city assessment, which we already know is a mindless algorithm. So the Zestimate is an algorithm using data from another algorithm. The Zestimate's an entertainment tool, nothing more. It's clickbait. It's not real. I know that, and now you know it too. So don't ever use the word Zestimate when discussing market value, just like you shouldn't use the word assessment. When you want to know the market value, we can do a comparable market analysis or get an appraisal. When you see a new listing, it's easy to look at the pictures and get a feeling on whether you like it or not. But it's not easy to see the market value because there's so many distractions, like the pictures and the list price, and the assessment, and the Zestimate, and the panic of not knowing the area and wondering if you're ever going to find the right home. Fear not, I can help. Send me an email right now. Just do it. Tell me your story, and I'll help you find the right home in the right neighborhood for you. Start emailing. Right now, email me.